Now, for further analysis on the current situation in Ramallah, on the third batch of the detainee exchange under the first phase of Gaza's ceasefire agreement, we're now joined from Ramallah by Professor of Political Science at Al-Quds University, Dr. Ayman Alreqb. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. And how does the detainee exchange process affect the broader dynamics of the ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel?
We followed the beginning of the batch number 3 by releasing 3 Israeli captives. In return, 110 Palestinian prisoners were released, and 40 elderly people. This process goes normally, but Netanyahu tried to hinder and rejected all the displays of the celebration. But the things are coming in the matter was agreed upon, and up till now the matters politically goes normally, apart from the killing made by the Israeli forces that resulted in the delay of the completing the third patch of the exchange deal.
Right. Now, what are the criteria used to determine which detainees are included in this exchange, and how are they deciding on that?
According to the agreement, in the 19th of January, there was an agreement that each Israeli soldier for more than 50 Palestinian, but the elderly people in return 40 or for the high sentence, but the women and children, the civilians in return of 30s of women and children. This was the rule and the criteria that the agreement was based upon. And in the second phase is going to be the difficulty, because they're talking about the release of officers, particularly that more than 20,000 Palestinians are in prison right now.
Right. Let me here ask you. Now, this exchange of detainees comes right ahead of a meeting that will take place between President Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister. Now, how do you think, after what we've seen today and the whole world watched, what do you think, or how will that reflect on this meeting, and what could we be expecting there?
The details of the release of the Palestinian and Israeli detainees were agreed upon as full in the agreement signed in Doha. And there was an agreement of the details of the deal, meeting that would contain Trump and Netanyahu, through which they would discuss and tackle what is next after, as well as the displacement of the Gazians out. But we've seen around 400,000 were displaced return to their home, even though their homes were demolished. I think there is a very important message in the wake of, or rather prior the meeting of Donald Trump and Netanyahu. Now, if Netanyahu which, if is he going to for this peace to prevail, so he has to accept what has been proposed
No,
by President Abdel Fattah
yes,
al-Sisi.
my question here was how this development, the detainees exchange, and what we have seen would impact or reflect on this meeting between the US President and the Israeli Prime Minister. Would it send a kind of message there?
I said that the timetables of the release exchange was agreed upon, but the scene of the military features of the scene was troubling. Therefore, I said it is required right now, as Witkoff, the US envoy, have already transferred the situations, stances of the Arab countries. I think it is they would tackle this issue based on the Arabs' stances to fighting in a just solution for the Palestinian cause. But in general, I think this is what is going on the table. What is going to look like in the next day after the end of the war.
Mm-hmm. Now, what could be the potential diplomatic ramification if either side fails to uphold their part of the detainee exchange agreement?
Certainly, each side wanted to impose on the reality that has a division in that regard. Hamas would see it's a part of the solution. Then trying to display militarily in which they send a message to the Americans that they are included in any upcoming future to Gaza. It is also well known that Hamas is talking about what's happening in the ground, particularly with the lack of the horizons, as stated by the Israeli and American, that Hamas shouldn't be in the picture. That would require agreement and arrangement with Hamas, how it is going to be following the end of the truce in full.
Now, we've all followed today this detainee exchange process, and that very much raised a big question mark about the prisoners' rights and treatments. As we saw, the prisoners coming from the Israeli prisons and the detainees from the Palestinian side. So how about the prisoners' rights, the treatment of detainees in both sides, Israel and Gaza, and how does this reflect on the human rights aspect, and definitely as seen by the international community at large?
Practically, the circumstances of the Israeli captives were in the light of the war that has not returned the Geneva Convention. But in the state of occupation, we're talking about the states of being exposed to hate and abused. But through the scene of the Israeli exchange release, coming out with gifts, but in the other way, when the Palestinian prisoners going out of prison are faced with punishment by the Israeli forces, there is a great difference. But as we indicated, of course, the release of the Palestinians are not related to the condition of Geneva Conventions with regarding the human rights.
All right. That was Dr. Ayman Alreqb, political science professor at Al-Quds University from Ramallah. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News.